Chapter 1. The cry that stopped time. Preston Vale's voice thundered through the marble corridors of the Vale estate, sharp enough to halt the ticking of the grand clocks that adorned the walls. Who let him cry like that? The words reverberated, slicing through the stillness of the mansion. A cry shrill, cyclical, raw had pierced the quiet, and now, so had Preston's command. Maya William froze mid-swipe of the window pane on the second floor, her microfiber cloth damp in her hand. She'd been working at the Vale estate for only 5 days, assigned to routine cleaning in the east wing. No one had mentioned the 5th floor. In fact, the staff avoided it like it was cursed, their whispers trailing off whenever it came up. But the sound rising again now, that desperate sobbing, wasn't something Maya could ignore. It wasn't a hungry cry, nor was it sleepy or cranky. It was panic pure, clawing from the inside out panic. "Miss," the butler's voice called. From downstairs, firm, but edged with warning. "Stay clear of the upper wing." Maya didn't answer. Her heart pounded as she climbed the final steps to the 5th floor, her sneakers silent against the polished wood. At the end of the hallway, behind a partially open door, a flickering light pulsed from a sensory projector. Inside, a boy maybe 7 sat curled on the carpeted floor, rocking violently, his forehead striking a bookshelf in a rhythmic, painful beat. No supervision, no comfort. Just a child lost in his own distress. She paused at the threshold. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to follow the rules, to stay in her lane as a temp cleaner. But something deeper, something old and buried, rooted her in place. Her brother, Jermaine, used to do the same thing, rocking, crying, trapped in a world no one could fully reach. She remembered him vividly, under the dinner table, arms tight across his chest, face streaked with tears no one could explain. Maya stepped softly into the room and crouched several feet away. "Hey, sweetheart," she whispered, her voice barely audible over his cries. "I'm not going to touch you. Just sitting right here." The boy didn't respond, but his rocking slowed, just a fraction. She kept her hands in sight, palms up, non-threatening. Then, slowly, she lifted one hand and traced a simple sign across her chest. Safe, a motion her grandmother had taught her to calm Jermaine when words failed. The boy glanced at her, a fleeting flicker, then resumed rocking. But before she could try again, a sharp voice cut through the air. "What the hell are you doing?" Maya turned quickly. Preston Vale stood in the doorway, a towering figure of tailored precision and barely contained fury. His suit was impeccable, his dark hair perfectly combed, but his eyes burned. In one hand he clutched a phone. The other gripped the doorknob like it might snap. "I'm sorry, sir," Maya said, standing instinctively. "I heard him crying. And who gave you permission to be in this room?" His voice was low, dangerous. "No one. I thought he might be in danger. Step away from my son." Her muscles stiffened, but she obeyed, stepping aside as Preston strode toward the boy. The moment he tried to lift his son, the child erupted screaming louder, kicking, clawing, his arms flailing in full panic. Preston struggled to hold him, visibly shocked by the intensity. "What's wrong with him?" he muttered, almost to himself. "Why does he? May I?" Maya said gently, stepping forward again. Preston didn't stop her. She knelt, reached out, and the moment the boy felt her presence, his screaming eased. He twisted toward her, collapsing into her arms like he'd been waiting for her all along. His small hands gripped her sleeve, his face buried in her shoulder. The silence that followed was absolute. Preston stared, stunned. What did you do?" "I didn't do anything, sir," Maya said softly, swaying gently with the boy in her arms. "I just listened and signed." "You know sign language?" he asked, his voice quieter now, almost disbelieving. "A little. My brother. He's nonverbal, autistic. This used to help him calm down." Preston's posture shifted, almost imperceptibly. His suit suddenly seemed too tight, his presence forceful moments ago, now suspended, like he didn't know what to do with himself. "What's your name?" "Maya William. I clean the East Wing. You're not a therapist?" "No, sir, just a cleaner." He watched her hold his son, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Can you stay a little longer today?" Maya nodded, still swaying with the boy. "Yes, sir," she whispered. Preston turned, walking slowly out of the room. For the first time in months, the house was still. No echoes of pain, no tense footsteps, no slammed doors. Just a boy and a stranger, now not so strange, wrapped in quiet understanding. Though Preston didn't say it, the look on his face spoke volumes. Something had shifted. Something was beginning. Chapter 2. A boundary crossed. The sun dipped lower. As Maya descended the stairs, her back aching slightly from holding the boy Alicia, she'd heard Preston call him for so long. He had finally drifted to sleep in her arms, his face pressed into the curve of her shoulder, like he belonged there. She'd laid him gently on a beanbag in the corner of his nursery, covering him with a weighted blanket she found folded in the closet. He hadn't stirred. The grand mansion felt heavier now than when she'd first entered it 5 days ago. Each chandelier sparkled, but coldly. Each marble tile clicked under her feet, a reminder that she didn't belong. She was a cleaner, a temp, and she had just crossed a major boundary. She turned toward the service hallway, bracing herself to be dismissed, maybe even fired on the spot. "Miss William." The voice came from behind her, clipped and clear. She turned to find Preston Vale standing at the end of the corridor, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. He no longer held his phone. Instead, he clutched a small legal pad, the kind that signaled something official was about to happen. "Yes, sir?" Maya straightened instinctively. "In my office, please." Her heart sank. She nodded and followed him down the long hallway, through a set of double doors, into an office she'd only ever dusted from the outside. It was immaculate modern, sparsely decorated. Dark wood shelves held books with uncreased spines. A wall of windows overlooked the private garden. At the far end sat a massive polished oak desk. He gestured to the chair in front of it. "Sit." Maya obeyed, folding her hands in her lap. Preston sat opposite her, silent for several seconds. He tapped the pen against the notepad's edge. A grandfather clock ticked in the distance, making the room feel like a courtroom where she was either witness or accused. "You handled him like someone who'd done it 100 times, he said. "Finally, I haven't, not with him, just with someone like him." "Your brother?" "Yes, sir, Jermaine. He passed away 4 years ago. He was 10. Preston's eyes flicked up, and for a moment, something human passed across his face. "I'm sorry, thank you." He was silent again, then leaned back in his chair. "No therapist, no specialist, no trained professional has been able to calm Eli down like that. Not in 2 years, they all failed. And you just walked in there with a rag in your hand and fixed him." Maya's throat tightened. "I didn't fix him, sir. I just saw him. That stopped him." The pen he'd been tapping fell still. "You saw him. Children like Eli, they don't need to be fixed. They need to be heard. You can't rush their silence. You have to be willing to sit in it with them." Preston blinked slowly. "You sound like someone who should be doing more than mopping floors." "I'm just someone who needed a job, sir. My grandmother's got medical bills, and this pays better than the diner." He looked down at his notes, then closed the notepad. "Altogether, I want to make you an offer." Maya blinked. "Sir? "I need someone who can connect with Eli. Someone consistent, not another overqualified stranger with a clipboard and a 2-week contract. Someone he already trusts. I'm not a nanny." "I don't need a nanny. I need you." She shook her head gently. "Sir, with all due respect, I'll double your pay," he said, not letting her finish. "You'll stay in the staff wing private room, all expenses handled. Weekends off, health insurance if you don't already have it, and you'll never lift a mop again." Maya's heart raced. The numbers danced in her head. That kind of money could mean real treatment for Grandma Loretta, no more skipped medications. No more stretching food stamps. But she also knew the risk. This wasn't just a job. This was a boy with fragile patterns and even more fragile trust. If she failed him, it wouldn't be just another nanny leaving. It would be betrayal. I don't know if I can." Preston leaned forward, elbows on his desk. "Look, I've had behaviorists with degrees from Stanford, nannies from elite agencies, even a family counselor who charged $2,000 an hour. None of them lasted more than a week. You walked in, said nothing, and my son laid his head on your shoulder. I don't know what that is, but I know it's rare." Maya swallowed. "It's not magic, sir. It's just care. That's even rarer." She looked down at her hands, chipped nail polish and all. She thought of Loretta, of the quiet way she'd say, "Baby, if God opens a door, don't stand." "They're arguing about the knob. When would I start?" she asked. "Tomorrow morning. I'll have the room prepared tonight." Maya nodded. "Okay, I'll try." Preston stood and extended his hand. She shook it, small but firm. As she left the office, her mind raced. She hadn't packed for a live-in job. She hadn't even told her landlord. But beneath the noise was something quieter, something she hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Chapter 3. A new rhythm. The next morning, Maya arrived with a small duffel bag slung over her shoulder and a cardboard box under her arm. The housekeeper, Mrs. Green, led her to the staff quarters on the east side of the mansion, near the back garden. The room was simple but warm. A twin bed, a reading chair, a desk facing the window. "Mr. Vale had this redone last night," Mrs. Green said, handing Maya a key card. "Said you were important." "I'm just a helper," Maya replied. "Maybe, but he don't give spare rooms to helpers." Maya smiled politely and unpacked quickly, hanging her clothes and placing a framed photo of Loretta on the nightstand. By 9:30 a.m., she stood outside Eli's nursery again. This time, he was awake, sitting on the rug, sorting colored blocks into 2 piles, red and blue. "Morning, Eli," she said softly. He didn't look up but paused for a beat. She stepped closer, sat cross-legged a few feet away, quiet and non-threatening. After a few minutes, he nudged a red block toward her with his toe. She smiled. "Thanks." She pushed a blue block back. The game had begun. Hours passed like that, no words, just color, rhythm, repetition. At one point, she began to hum soft gospel tones. Eli didn't protest. He leaned in slightly, like someone drawn to a warm fire. Preston watched from the doorway in silence, his chest aching in a way he couldn't yet name. Not grief, not fear, but something else. Hope. Chapter 4. Shadows of the past. Maya stood by the nursery window as dusk crept in, her arms loosely folded, gaze fixed on the garden below. The day had been quieter than expected. No outbursts, no frantic running. Eli hadn't spoken, but he'd let her sit closer, hadn't flinched when she sang softly, and had even touched her sleeve once when she reached for a puzzle piece. That small touch lit something in her cautious, almost sacred hope. Soft footsteps sounded behind her. Preston entered, no longer in his usual suit but a white shirt with rolled cuffs and gray slacks. His face was softer, less carved. How was he today? He asked, his voice quieter than the sharp bark from their first meeting. "Peaceful," Maya said, a faint smile lifting her lips. No meltdowns, he was steady. Preston stepped farther into the room, eyes on his son, who now lay on his stomach, pushing a toy train along a track. "I don't know what you're doing," he muttered, "but it's working." "It's not a trick, Mr. Vale," she replied gently. "It's time, presence, and letting him lead." He nodded slowly, as if deciphering a new language. "He used to love trains," he said suddenly. "Emma, my wife, Took him to the railroad museum every other Saturday. Maya's gaze turned to Preston. His face was toward the window now. Eyes distant. He hasn't asked to go since she passed, he continued, voice low. Not once. She didn't push, letting the silence speak. I thought we were doing okay, he went on. After the funeral, I hired the best therapists, enrolled him in every program that'd take him. I spared nothing. But it only got worse, the tantrums, the fear, the screaming. He turned to Maya. And now here you are, and he's calmer than I've seen in over a year. Maya shifted. Grief isn't a flu, Mr. Vale. It's not linear. Not for you, not for him. Preston didn't answer right away. Then, do you think he remembers her? I think he feels her absence, she said after a pause. Even if. He doesn't know how to say it. He sat in the armchair by the bookshelf, elbows on his knees, looking at his son with guilt and awe. I was married for 10 years, he said suddenly. We met in college. I was rigid. She was jazz. She laughed too loud, danced barefoot on our balcony in the rain, made breakfast at midnight. Maya smiled. She sounds wonderful. She was, he said, his voice cracking slightly. Eli looked up, locking eyes with his father. Preston stood and crouched beside him. Hey, bud, he said softly. How's the train coming? Eli didn't speak, but didn't recoil either. Preston looked at Maya. You think he'll ever talk again? I think he already is, she replied, eyes warm. You just have to learn his language. Chapter 5, A Fragile Trust, 3 weeks. Passed, and Maya's presence in the Vale mansion became a necessity. Each morning, she entered Eli's nursery with a quiet ritual, no sudden movements, just steady showing up. Eli began to offer more, seeking her eyes, following her with silent trust, handing her small objects, blocks, buttons, puzzle pieces, as if they were messages. That morning, she introduced a new routine, a soft mat, scented clay, and emotion. Cards with bold, cartoonish expressions. This one's happy, she said, showing the first card. Happy like when the music plays. Eli touched the card, then pressed it to his chest. Yeah, Maya whispered. That's right. When Preston came home, the house felt different, not empty, but humming with life. In the kitchen, Mrs. Green played soft jazz. Windows were cracked open. Upstairs, Eli laughed a quick, pure giggle that stopped Preston in his tracks. He followed the sound to the living room, where Maya knelt on the carpet, a toy giraffe in one hand, a sock puppet in the other, miming a silly fight. Over pretend tea. When the puppet fell with a squeaky oof, Eli's face lit up in a soundless smile. Preston crouched beside his son. Hey buddy, he said. Eli didn't flinch, touching his father's shirt briefly before turning back to the toys. Preston's throat tightened. He's trusting you more, Maya said softly. Preston nodded, eyes on his son. He used to play with Emma like that. Her sock puppet voice was ridiculous, but he loved it. He stood and looked at Maya. Thank you, she smiled faintly. I'm not doing anything you couldn't do. That's the part one find hardest to believe, he said, half joking. Half defeated. Chapter 6. A growing connection in the garden. That evening, Maya sat on a wooden bench under a magnolia tree, holding a mug of her grandmother's cinnamon hibiscus tea. The azaleas were blooming, and the air felt like late spring. She'd been afraid her time here would be temporary, but Preston had started seeking her out, not just about Eli, but for meals, books, conversation. Their talks felt level, human, despite their different worlds. The gate creaked. Preston stood in the moonlight, holding 2 mugs. Thought you might like chamomile, he said. She blinked, surprised. That's thoughtful. I figured it's either that or bourbon, and you don't strike me as a bourbon before bed person. She chuckled. That'd put me on my back. He sat beside her, not too close. You come out here every night? When I can't sleep. Same. They sipped in silence. Then he said quieter, your brother, what happened? She exhaled slowly. Seizure. Complications from an infection. He passed in the hospital while I was filling out insurance paperwork. Preston looked at her. I'm sorry. Thank you. He was the only person who saw me without expecting anything back. That sounds like Eli, he said softly. Yeah, it does. Preston ran a hand through his hair. You make this look easy, but I know it's not. I know I'm difficult. This house is cold. Eli's challenges are overwhelming. You're not difficult, Mr. Vale. You're grieving in the only way you know how. His eyes met hers. Call me Preston, please. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay, Preston. A gust of wind rustled the branches. I want to learn, he said suddenly. I want to know what you know about him, how to reach him. Maya's heart beat faster. You're already halfway there. I watch you with him, the way you read his cues, understand what he needs before he asks. I don't have that instinct. You don't need instinct. You need willingness. And he'll teach you if you're patient. Preston looked at her, and something shifted in the air, delicate, dangerous, real. Chapter 7. A word breaks through. The next day, everything changed. Maya led a small lesson in the living room, simple sign language. More, stop, help, love. Preston joined, clumsy but earnest. Eli watched, then copied. When Preston signed more, Ayla responded with a half-formed version of the same gesture. Preston's eyes filled, but he didn't speak, just nodded and reached for his son's hand. That evening, Maya wrote in her journal, he's coming back to his son. Not as a savior, not as a fixer, but as a father learning a new language, one built on silence, trust, and steady hands. Later, Preston stood outside her door, holding a book. I found this in Emma's things, he said. It's about parenting children with sensory disorders. I thought we could read it together. She took it gently. I'd like that. And thank you for staying. That night, Maya sat on her bed, the book in her lap, Jermaine's memory warm in her chest. She wasn't just staying. She was building something slowly, quietly. Like Eli's laughter, like trust blooming between unlikely hands. Chapter 8. A family found that the early summer light streamed into the nursery, casting golden beams across the wooden floor. Maya sat cross-legged with Eli, encouraging him to press animal shapes into kinetic sand. He didn't speak, but his responses grew eye contact, small gestures, tentative smiles. When she sang, he swayed. When she laughed, he watched longer. Once, he touched her wrist, pushing it gently toward her. "Thank you," she whispered. His fingers brushed her palm in reply. Preston joined these sessions now, kneeling beside his son, mimicking Maya's signs with deep concentration. "Cow," Maya signed, forming horns with her fingers. Eli stared, then pressed a cow figure into the sand with care. Preston laughed quietly. "He's getting it." "So are you," Maya said, smiling. That afternoon, Preston invited her to Tipu. Walk the garden. Eli napped in the sunroom, clutching a stuffed bear. They walked past manicured hedges to an old gazebo. Preston had removed his jacket, loosened his collar, a man shedding armor. "Eli's therapist called," he said. "His milestones are delayed, but he's improving. He's trusting again." "That takes safety," Maya said softly. Preston nodded. She asked what changed. "I told her it was you." Maya chuckled. "I'm just one part of it. You're the part that matters." She met his eyes and the world narrowed. The breeze slowed. Preston's expression softened. "Before Emma died," he began, voice gravelly, "she said I was always 2 steps behind, never seeing what was in front of me until it was too late." Maya listened. She handled everything: school forms, therapy, tantrums. "I just wrote checks. When she got sick, I panicked, tried to control everything, as if order could save her." He swallowed. "Grief makes us grasp for anything that doesn't move. Because what moves might disappear," Maya said gently. He looked at her, surprised, then nodded. "You speak like someone who's lost someone. We all carry echoes." They walked in silence. Maya touched a blooming chamomile. "These grew outside my grandmother's porch. She called them stubborn flowers, blooming when they felt like it, not when expected." "Sounds familiar," Preston said. She smiled. "I suppose it does." That evening, they watched old therapy videos of Eli, narrated by Emma's gentle voice. In one clip, a younger Eli signed love clumsily to Preston. Emma's laughter followed. Preston's face paled. "I forgot about that video." "She was good with him," Maya said. "She was everything," he replied, voice cracking. "And I erased her." "No, you didn't. You were surviving. Now you're healing." He stared at her. "Are you healing too?" "I think so. Some days more than others." Preston touched her hand gently. She didn't pull away. That night, something changed, not in words but in presence. Maya lay awake, her heart beating not from fear but from awareness. Something was forming unspoken. Undeniable. Upstairs, Eli stirred and mumbled a sound, soft, high-pitched, almost a word. The house was listening now. And so was she. Chapter 9. The storm arrives. The sharp knock at the door broke the morning's calm. Maya was in the kitchen, preparing Eli's oatmeal, when Preston answered. 3 men stood outside, one holding a clipboard with Child Welfare Services emblazoned on it. "Mr. Vale," the lead man said, "we've received a report of possible neglect concerning your son, Elisha. We're here for an assessment." Preston's voice was calm but stormy. "This is absurd. Who filed this?" "We're not permitted to disclose that." Maya stepped into the hallway, holding Eli close. "He's safe," she said steadily. "I've been with him every day." The assessment was clinical: pantry, nursery, backyard checked. Maya declined to let them speak to Eli alone. "He doesn't speak with strangers. I'm his voice." They found nothing. But off the record, the lead agent admitted, "It's rare we see a child this well cared for." Whoever sent the complaint may have had other motivations. Later, Preston called a meeting with his attorney, Sandra Griffin, and security advisor, Lionel Hatch. "This wasn't random," Preston said. "We're getting resistance on a tech acquisition. Someone accessed my schedule, Sylvia Warner, an old assistant, now engaged to Lark Technologies' coup." Lionel nodded. "They're playing dirty. Using Eli to rattle you." "Not just me," Preston said, glancing at Maya. "Us. They filed a countersuit against Lark Technologies for defamation and abuse of government agencies." That night, Maya received an anonymous text. "I know what you are. He'll find out too. You don't belong there." Preston saw her expression. "This has to stop," he said, jaw tight. Chapter 10. The courtroom battle. The courtroom was cold, the air heavy with anticipation. Maya sat beside Preston, hands clasped tightly. Judge Adeline Monroe called the session to order. Cameras clicked as reporters filled the gallery. Sylvia Warner sat across the room, her engagement ring glinting smugly. Lionel testified, outlining Sylvia's unrevoked access and Lark's motives. When Maya's name arose, the opposing attorney sneered. Why did a housekeeper insert herself into such a delicate situation? Maya took the stand, unflinching. "Because that boy wasn't just frightened, he was forgotten. And I know what that feels like." She spoke of growing up overlooked, of her sister's unheard needs. "I promised myself I wouldn't walk away from a child in pain." The courtroom quieted. Even Sylvia's smirk slipped. Judge Monroe dismissed Lark's allegations, condemning their manipulation of child welfare systems. "Miss Williams' actions reflect the highest moral standard," she said that outside. Reporters swarmed. Maya faced them, steady. "I didn't do this to win. I did it because a boy needed someone who wouldn't leave." Chapter 11. A new beginning. The following morning, The house felt alive with a new kind of stillness, peaceful, warm. Eli signed happy as Maya made pancakes. Preston joined, tie loose, eyes soft. A letter arrived from Judge Monroe, nominating Maya for the state's Child Welfare Advisory Board. It's not just about Eli, Maya said, stunned. There are more kids like him out there. And not enough people willing to fight for them, Preston replied. They visited a community center for children with disabilities. Maya helped a boy sign home, his smile wide. The director offered her a volunteer role. I think I'd like that, Maya said. That night she called her Aunt Lorraine. I saw you on the news, Lorraine said. Your mama would be proud. Later, in the nursery, Eli whispered, stay. Maya sat beside him, heart full. Downstairs, Preston asked her to stay, not as staff, but as family. I'm not asking for answers tonight, he said. But you've become something far more important to me. Maya looked away, heart pounding. This was never about love. No, he agreed. It was about truth. But sometimes when truth is safe, love follows. Chapter 12. A family forged a year later. A framed photo sat on Preston's desk. Maya and Eli under a tree, laughing. Above it, engraved words read, family is the place where the storm breaks. Below, Maya's quote, justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just showing up and staying. Maya joined advocacy circles, designed inclusive curricula, and traveled with Preston and Eli to community meetings. Her story spread not as a fairy tale, but as a reminder, sometimes it's not the powerful who change the world. It's the ones who dare to care when no one else will.